Unreliable engines do currently exist in modern day SUVs, where there's broken timing chains, coolant leaks, blown head gaskets, rod bearing problems, or drop valve seats. It doesn't matter, there are a lot of these expensive repairs that are in many of our modern day SUVs, and the last thing you or I want to do is get caught with one of those junky unreliable SUV engines. So today I'm going to share a list of 5 unreliable SUVs with such bad engines that you're going to want to avoid them like the plague. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. So the first one on our list is this beautiful unit right here, ultra popular. What we're looking at here is the Ford Bronco. A lot of people have wanted to get their hands on these. Very utilitarian. It's a throwback to the old school days. Of course, some great elements. You've got tow hooks there, and you've got that strong Bronco front grille. Of course, right here, you've got some tie downs and some big, beautiful off-road wheels. This one's a black diamond edition. Look, sturdy. You've also got this beautiful roof here and some very solid looking handles. The interior looks pretty robust as well, although if not slightly dressed down and not all that high quality. But it's a great looking unit with all the versatility, ruggedness. The intention is to compete with something from the Jeep arsenal. It definitely has the look from the 70s, but unfortunately the engine buried under that hood is not the same level of reliability as some of the old school engines. Now unfortunately we're talking about the 2.7 liter EcoBoost engine that you're finding under the hood there. Now the real problem there is it's been recalled because of some valves dropping. The valves are breaking because apparently the valves don't stay in place. The keepers let them go, and then you end up with a piston and valve collision, catastrophically ruining that engine. The worst part is, a lot of these are letting go at relatively low miles, so they're finding out pretty quickly what the issue is if you do in fact have an issue. Very, very problematic engine and a sad state of affairs in today's current day and age. But there's other issues. If you happen to have the 2.3 liter, there's wastegate issues. Some of these vehicles also have problems with water leaks, roof squeak and rattles, and the overall quality control isn't exactly as many people hoped it would be. Sadly, the 2.7 liter EcoBoost engine, not really a good engine by today's standards. That's the next little hot rod SUV crossover that we're talking about. Borderline car, but most would call it some sort of sport crossover vehicle. And what we're looking at here is a little Korean special. And what is it? It's a Hyundai, for sure. And you look, they have their great grills. But sadly, there's problematic engines in some of these. But let's take a look around. You have great little sunroofs and mirrors, beautiful wheels all the way around. And then, of course, on the back here, you have these great little touches and accents. LEDs now. Interesting little, busy little taillight assembly, but we're talking about a 1.6T all-wheel drive in the Kona specifically. What's the interior like? Certainly a price point car, but hitting above its weight class, I would say. Now the issue isn't so much in the 1.6, it's more often the 2-liter engines that we're specifically talking about. There's been a lot of troubles along the way for a lot of these, and a lot of owners sadly have felt the wrath of what a bad engine can feel like. Things like stalling issues while you're driving along, oil consumption, shooting oil at the chute, engine knocking, clock, 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 clock. In some cases, potential oil leaks, which could lead to a fire. Now, unfortunately, the problem is with the 2-liter engine, there's an issue in the piston rings in some cases in some engines. Poor machining and installation results in a catastrophic engine failure. What kind of failure is that? The connecting rod through the engine block and outright engine replacement required. Now, unfortunately, all of this saddled on the fact that Hyundai and Kia have had numerous different engine problems. Meaning, while some people are loving their vehicles, their Hyundais and Kias, others are struggling with real catastrophic problems. But it doesn't just end with the engine, there's a bunch of other things that you have to consider when you're driving these vehicles. For example, like airbags have been a problem, delayed shifting in the transmission because of fluid levels, meaning that overall, this particular car is a little bit of a risk. Here's the next SUV that kind of looks almost like a minivan, but it also has problems, engine problems. Quite a few of them reported. Specifically, 2011 to 2017 model years are where the real hot spots were. But why are people buying these? I mean, they do look almost like a minivan. They technically qualify them as an SUV. They got some actually cool wheels, some cool little handles, of course, and the interior is actually very marginal. Not quite up to luxury car standards, but it's equipped with leather. Of course, you have lots of great glass on top and some cool mirrors that are fold away. What about the front end? Projector headlamps, and look, we're talking about a Kia right there. What is this cool conglomeration? And look down the side, it's a very basic looking design overall. And look around the back, beautiful little taillights on this SX GDI, and it's a Sorento. Now, I know they're very popular vehicles. A lot of people buy these, and there's a lot of them out on the road. And a lot of people have been very happy with their results, but there have been a lot of very unhappy customers, unfortunately, related to the engine that's under the hood with some of the V6s in that certain generation, as I mentioned already. And what can actually happen is the head gasket, where it can start leaking externally or internally into the engine, where he starts consuming the coolant. And that, of course, then starts taking a toll to the internals of the engine, and you'll start seeing white smoke potentially coming out of the exhaust system. Often, a lot of these cars start to fail between 50 and 80,000 miles. And when you have to fix that engine problem, because often it's out of warranty, it ends up costing you anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000, $8,000 to actually fix that problem. Very expensive to actually rectify that sad state of affairs. But it doesn't just end there. There's other issues too. We can get a chain slap on startup. You get the timing chain can go brrr. You can get a crankshaft pulley bolts on some of the earlier ones where they'd back off. And if the crankshaft is coming loose, you're gonna have a major catastrophic failure. There's also headlights that prematurely burnt out, door handles that would stop working, air conditioning that would stop pumping the cold air. So unfortunately, it's another one for the dumpster. And there's the next SUV that's got a lot of engine problems. What is it? Well, first of all, it is an attractive little European sports. First of all, hint, it's a VW. Obviously, you look down the side, it's got some great aluminum trim, great little mirrors. Of course, the inside is very, very well equipped and nicely done. Of course, you got a roof rack to haul that roach-infested mattress to the dumpster. Right there, you got a great set of taillights, and it's a Tiguan right there by VW. And we're talking about the 2-liter TSI. Now, it's a great looking little unit down the sides. Of course, you have some nice contours, and you got plastic guards to protect it from the rocks. Infamous Volkswagen grille, and of course, you've got the nice little projector lamps up front. But what is actually the issue with this particular vehicle? Where should we start? Why don't we just start with some check engine lights that you can see very frequently with this vehicle? How about a P0300 to 304 check engine light, and that's related to misfires? Ignition coil packs. And now a lot of you guys are going to say that's maintenance. Yes, but they burn them out far too frequently. How about another check engine light called P3081? And it might actually have to do with water pumps that are failing. It could spit out a code, or it just could result in the engine starting to overheat and cause all kinds of real big problems. I mean, after all, aluminum heads, aluminum block, overheat that, and you're in a real world of hurt. You might as well almost throw that engine out. Another thing you can get is the N80, which is the purge valve in the evaporation system. Obviously, has to do with the recirculation of the toxic airs and gases to go back into the intake manifold. That can clap out and cause you a check engine light. Plastic intake manifold, that cracks, splits, and when that happens, you could actually literally get problems with leaking intake air manifold and fuel mixture, resulting in poor running. Of course, if that plastic intake manifold breaks, splits, cracks, leaks, you're just going to have running issues, possibly check engine lights, and just a huge repair bill ahead of you. And the biggest thing with this particular engine isn't all the check engine lights and the problems and the leaking and the coolant and the leaking oil. It's actually the timing chains, but it's more specifically the chain tensioners. The tensioners let go. That timing chain, which keeps your pistons and your valves in sync, can actually slip out of whack. Your chain can flip, and of course you can have valve and piston connection, which means a catastrophic boom. And again, if you blow an engine, you're looking at $6,000 to $10,000 to get something rebuilt and get it sorted out. So these are all very common issues, unfortunately, with these vehicles. There's other things too, for example, like the HVAC system, the clock spring on the airbag. There's a lot of little miscellaneous problems you'll find with these vehicles, but there's way more than enough engine issues to even choke a horse with this Volkswagen Tiguan. The next SUV with major engine problems is what's parked right here. Yeah, it pains me to say that because typically Honda is a ruthlessly reliable brand. Of course, they're known for fuel efficiency, reliability, low cost of maintenance and servicing. They're ruthless, they're great. But there is a problem with this specific SUV and the engine that's tucked under the hood of that vehicle. But let's take a quick look. Beautiful wheels, got this great little plastic guard along the base, protected from stones and rock. Of course, nice little handles there, great mirrors, and the interior is sharp too. Very rugged, robust, and will wear extremely well. You also get a sunroof on top. And around the back, you have some great little taillights on this CR-V by Honda. So what could possibly be the problem with driving a Honda SUV, such as this little CR-V right here? Well, there's one specific engine that's a real problem, and you need to know about it. It's the L15B7 engine. It's a turbo 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine that you typically find in a lot of these vehicles. Now, it's not unique to the CR-V. There's some cars that use that engine as well. and there's a whole host of issues with that engine. If I didn't know better, I think this was actually powered by BMW. Just kidding. One common issue is carbon buildup. Because it's direct injected engine, you can get excessive amounts in and around the valves, the intake manifold, and eventually you just need to maintain that, tear it all down and clean it all out. Misfires is another one. If you get the wrong specification of a spark plug in the really cold weather, it may not properly run. You could get misfires, check engine lights. But the big issue with this engine is oil dilution. That's right, because it is direct injected and the way it's been designed, what's end up happening is you're getting too much pressure in the fuel system. It's pushing past the rings and it's winding with fuel in the base of the engine. That's right, it's mixing oil and fuel together. Don't think that's a problem? Think again. Remember, what is fuel? It's essentially a type of solvent. Solvent and oil, they use solvents to break down oil if you're using it to clean, for example. So you mix too much fuel with oil, it starts to reduce its protective abilities to keep the engine in one piece. For example, rod bearings, cam lobes, all those parts that need lubrication and oil to function properly and keep everything lubed is potentially in jeopardy. And how do you know that's going to be a problem? Well, check your oil level frequently. If you start to see it rise, that's a surefire indication that you actually are putting fuel into the engine oil sump. Now, there's a couple of things Honda's been working on some software updates to get that sorted out. And as well, make sure the best thing you can do is give the vehicle a proper warm-up time when you're driving it. Make sure the engine's really warm before you really get on the throttle. Otherwise, you can force that fuel past the rings and have more of this oil dilution. The other thing you can do is make sure that you're doing enough oil services. That's right, step it up. Do more oil services than even Honda would recommend. Because the more you change that oil, even if you're diluting the oil, there's less chance of it causing some serious issues. Yes, unfortunately, Honda too has some problematic engines in some of their SUVs. And with all of that said, you're gonna want to check that out. Many vehicles with some seriously bad electrical systems. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll catch you real soon. Bye-bye.